Hello, welcome to another edition of Move It or Lose It. So today we are really excited to have a psychologist that I've really wanted to get on. We played some games trying to get her on, but we are very excited to have Dr. Tolliver-Scott. Did I say it right? Kind of, sort of. Okay. So lots of reasons why, lots of things that you guys know if you've listened to the podcast. I always love to discuss the things that people don't discuss. And with MS and our autoimmune diseases, we know that there's a lot of things, the last few years, especially with our psychologists, with the things that we've been dealing with, whether it's sexual dysfunction, whether it's a lot of mental things that we've really needed to go over. And so, Dr. Scott, I'm so excited to have you on to bring some of these things up to the forefront, some things that I think we've been more open to discuss, but still a lot that are afraid to discuss this, afraid to go in and admit some things. And so I'm really looking forward to you shedding some light on what you do, how you got into it, and the fact that you yourself have MS, I think is such a big thing and such a, I believe, such an open environment for us with autoimmune diseases to come to someone who really understands what we have, which is something that I feel when I'm training my clients, they are able to express and they look at me and I'll say, I get it. I understand where you're at. Let's take a couple minutes and just breathe.
Yes. So I like that, I love, going in and diving right in, especially when it comes to, persons with MS like ourselves. And so, but I want to make one correction. I am studying, as far as right now with my EPPP to become a licensed psychologist. You sound like my mom though. She's like, no, we're going to say it. We're going to claim it,
That's right. I've already said it.
You've already said it.
Yes.
So that means it's happening soon.
It is.
It's gonna happen.
It's already there.
So, but
in Jesus' name, it's there.
It's there. It is there. So, but yeah, I am, right now studying for my EPPP. I finished everything that was required. It's just to take that test. So, but I'm so, and don't let me, probably get off topic of what was the question. Because that can happen. But yeah, I think that when it comes to with us, with people with MS, I think that we're kind of misunderstood. And throughout the process of, and if you look at like my social media, I put it out there that, I'm studying for my EPPP, but I am an expert in the area of sexual intimacy for MS patients or persons with MS.
Right.
And that's because I've done the years of research throughout for my dissertation. I've talked to like my neurologist. I've picked his brain on these things to try to figure out, it's a touchy subject and a topic that a lot of people don't want to go into.
Absolutely.
But we discuss those things, right?
Yes.
I can remember when I was bringing up that topic for my dissertation to my my mentor and at the university, and she was kind of like, are you sure? Like, why would you pick that? Are you sure? Like, I don't know if that's going to pass. I don't know if that's going to pass RV. But the university was amazing with as far as with the IRB, my committee. I worked with them closely to make sure that everything was being done in good taste. And so, and that's what they were really worried about too. And so I was like, no, don't worry. Like, we discussed these things. Like, I can remember going to my local MS support group and we had a whole topic on this. We were just sitting down talking, and it was just like, eating and drinking and being merry and talking about this. And so they were like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm positive. They always have like this misconception is that just because you have MS is that, we're disabled. We're just like everyone else. We just have an added just topic on us, an added title to us. And so it was something that we went and hit full force into, me and my mentor, and I had to go even further, of course, to do all the extra research then contact a member of the National Multiple Sclerosis
Mhm.
Society, doctor into that area, and just to make sure that I was on the right path, just to make sure that I was doing all the research possible and finding out, and also talking to MS patients and
Right.
talking to my participants, and digging right in to
Yeah.
see where do they find the problem at when it comes to sexual intimacy after being diagnosed with
Right.
MS. So,
So when you did that, because I know I've done a podcast where I did separately, I did it just for with men, and then
mhm.
I did it with women. Where do you find with women is the most common sexual dysfunction, or where they are the most aggravated, where they feel like it's just not happening for me. This is the most embarrassing, this is the most frustrating.
So the number one thing that I had a lot of MS patients slash participants talk about was vaginal lubricant
Mm,
situations that they would have to go out, and it was embarrassing, of course, for them to even discuss it with their
sure.
partners, to want to say that they need some extra help in that area for vaginal lubrication. And the number two that a lot were going into after the number one was they were experiencing more physical pain as far as within their
Mm,
legs and the cramps, and so that was another thing, an issue that that would prevent them from performing as they thought they were performing well
right,
before being diagnosed, as compared to after being diagnosed. And that was mostly, of course, within the area of women.
right.
um,
I'm
of course.
surprised that women would be that uncomfortable with lubricant.
Yes, it was.
Interesting.
And I tell you, when as I was doing the interviews and going through research and asking, and it was to a point where I was like, that's something I never thought that,
Right.
would
I'd be
be.
more afraid of peeing. I mean, I'm just being
Yes, that
honest.
was
I'd
the
be
number
like,
three. That
right.
was the
I'd be
number
like, oh
three.
my gosh, I'm gonna pee. That would be my most fearful thing. I'm gonna pee all over. That would be my most afraid thing.
Yeah, that was that. No, I would say that would be number four. Number three was more in the area of vaginal pain, as far as with
Mhm.
muscles, like restricting, and
Yeah.
so that was a little bit down the line as far as with peeing.
I wonder if it's because most
But
women don't want to admit it.
yeah, they I was shocked that they admitted towards the vaginal
Yeah.
lubrication,
Yeah.
but I didn't have very many that were having issues with peeing, as
Uh-huh.
far as with sexual intimacy. But
Because I always
yeah.
think you really don't have MS unless you've gone somewhere and just peed out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're right.
You have to have some embarrassing moment where you're at Target or somewhere and you're just
Somewhere
like, I don't know what happened, but yeah, that happened.
it
So,
happened. Yeah, you are
right.
correct. It happened. You're like, oh, I sneezed. I don't know what that was,
Yep. It's
but
just there. So that's so interesting. So did you find that women, because I know for like the women that I talked to about this, that we've done like podcasts and stuff,
Mhm.
really find it difficult sensation. So they'll have a lot of numb, like I know I struggle with this, numb spots.
Not that wasn't something that was heavily talked about.
Okay.
It was mostly, the lubrication pain. I
Mm,
had some that say that they would experience pain during sexual intimacy, but it wasn't more so towards the numbness at
uh,
all. But
interesting.
and of course, that beats everything is gonna go more towards the communication that they would have to do with their partners, because
Sure.
some were getting to a point to where they were feeling like their partners were kind of tired of hearing like the same old thing, like, I
Right.
don't, not tonight, like I don't want to do this tonight, like I'm not in the mood, like I can't do this.
Sure.
Um, and there was more of, one, the embarrassment of them to even have to say if their partner asked them why,
Mm,
and then also, going more into, I just can't, like, this is just
right.
something that's happening. But that beats everything, because as soon as they would go into the area of having to communicate with their partner about what's going on with this, then boom, they start,
Mm,
of course, the tears come, they start crying,
yeah,
which is understandable.
sure,
And they, were feeling like they weren't being heard, they weren't being understood, they were,
sure.
somewhat of feeling like a burden,
Yeah.
to a point. So, but that beat everything for me
Wow.
because, they're kind of torn between this thing that we carry,
Right.
with us, which is it's not us, it's just a part of us, a small piece. And so
Right.
it's to a point to where, having to actually communicate and them feeling like they've disappointed their partner.
Sure.
So,
Now, what about the men? What did you find with the men?
oh, number one thing overall was ED. Like it was
Yeah.
always ED.
Yeah.
And I will admit the men that were answering the questions and
Uh,
also fully agreed to go full blown and made it through the full process of qualifying for my research study for the dissertation.
uh,
It was almost to a point to where they were like, okay, this is just us on here. Yes, it's just us. It's confidential. Okay,
uh,
well, I would almost didn't even want to do this because men, they don't want to talk about them disclosing a
right.
lot, and especially not talking about erectile dysfunction.
Sure.
And so, but that was the number one thing. I only had maybe one participant that talked about more of, the peeing aspect of
Right.
men.
Right.
But other than that, you know, that was it. It was the main thing of
Yeah.
erectile dysfunction. Um,
Interesting. Now, when I did mine, I remember Dr. Scott that the men were just very, very worried that it would be up on YouTube. The women were like, it's fine. But the men were like, ours will not be on YouTube. I'm like, you're fine. It won't go on YouTube.
yeah.
So I found that that was just, again, an embarrassment. They didn't want that on YouTube, which I totally
Yeah.
understood. I didn't
Yeah.
want them to feel embarrassed. I wanted them to freely be able to speak about. And I was honestly very honored that they did speak about a lot of the things. And the guys that were older really gave me an insight on just that sometimes it's okay just to be in bed and snuggle at that point.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
thought, very interesting, way to think of it at at that point.
Yeah.
So you've done that. And then also talk to me about your diagnosis was in 2014. Is that correct?
Yes. That was a lengthy process. To me it was, but
Yeah.
it was
How did
so
that come to you? How did,
so back then I was working
uh,
for Estee Lauder Corporations for Clinique. And of course I had a client book doing makeup and hand just dropped the brush and
oh,
hit the client, and then it, hit her cheek, hit the floor, and I was like, hold on, something's wrong. And then I started having like that numbness in my hand.
Mhm.
And so I would tell my husband and my mom, like, it's something wrong. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's something wrong with me, but I can't
Yeah,
figure it out. And so finally I went to a neurologist here, and he got me in for MRI, but he couldn't read it to me. I don't know if he was just so busy or what was going on. So he asked me, he was like, do you want the number one, number two, or number three in our state? And I was like, okay, give me more background because of course I'm going to want
right,
the number one, but where do I have to
right,
go to get to the number one?
right.
And so when he told me that, okay, he said, well, you're not the number one who is in a lot of the research and who looks at, a lot of research and with medication and everything. It's going to be
Right.
Dr. LeGank. And so I
And
was
so
like,
he had already
I want
told
him.
you had multiple sclerosis.
No, he did not.
Oh,
Yeah, he
okay.
didn't read it off to me. And so he referred me to Dr. LeGank. And when I got to Dr. LeGank's office, it
Mhm.
was December 22nd of 2014.
Always around a holiday, every
Always
time.
around the holidays. And so he got me back in the
Mine was
office.
Mother's Day.
See, it's always the
Always,
holiday.
always.
We'll never forget it. And so Dr. LeGank pulled me back and he was like, hey, were your results read to you or anything? Like, he's like, because I know you wrote in the paper right that you were trying to see if you had it. I had already gone through a spinal tap too back in my city. And they still
Hate
didn't,
those.
yeah, they still didn't like pinpoint and tell me. And Dr. LeGang was like, okay, I'm gonna take you in my office, and in his office where his desk was a computer and all, he's like, I'm gonna pull up your MRI and I'm gonna read this to you. And so we went in there, he let me sit at the desk, and he stood up and he was like, this is where you have a lesion. You have a lot of lesions on this side. And I was like, what? Like, what is going on? And it
Yeah.
still didn't process then. And so he said, okay, let's go back into the exam room. So we walked back in and he's like, you have multiple sclerosis. And he's like, your prayers have been answered of trying to figure out what's going on with you. And I was like, oh my God.
Your prayers have
So
been answered. Like
because
what?
I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Right.
And I told him, I don't know if this is MS. I don't know what's going on, but I need to
Right.
know some answers.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to hear, to pinpoint what it is.
Yeah.
But then I have a first cousin who has MS also.
Okay.
And so hers is primary progressive.
Okay.
And so
Have
I
you
don't
seen
know.
that yours has been similar to what she had?
No, no,
Okay.
no, no. So yeah, I would have like the brain fog. I would
Yeah.
have the chronic pain. I still have the chronic
Yeah.
pain and the brain
Right.
fog and stuff, especially when I'm tired.
Yes.
So I try to stay on the go. Dr. Legank has made sure that he's like, as long as you move around and you do different things, exercise, whatever you need to do.
Yes.
Now I need to get back into exercise, and my husband is an
Hello, right
exercise
here.
guy. Yes.
What I do.
So, but yeah, but I boohoo cried. I really thought my life
Yeah.
was over after
Yeah.
the
Of course.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
I boohoo cried in his office. He was like, "Oh my God, like no, 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 no. Don't look at it as in this is like devastating. Your life is
Yeah.
not over. You can still do everything you need to do."
I'm so glad the way he handled that because I don't know, you're going to have to listen to some of my podcasts, but so I had Tyler Campbell, Dr. Falaka Taylor. I had a couple of them on. I really wanted to understand what it's like being a Black person and how the care wasn't given, where they would say all these things like it's a sexual disease. It's this, it's this. And oh, you're Black, you don't get this. It's a white woman's
Mm,
disease.
mm,
And those things, I just really wanted to go deep into that. And it just really sickened me, broke my heart, um, the way that it's treated. And so
yeah.
did you feel that at all? Did you feel any of that?
Oh no.
Okay.
I will
'Cause
tell anyone. He is amazing.
I
Dr.
love
Legank
that.
he's amazing. He's motivating. He even throughout my
Good.
dissertation process and stages, like he made sure he's like, hey, like, anything I wanted as far as I was on Tysabri,
Uh,
and then I was starting to, have some issues with it.
right.
But that I didn't really per se see, but he called, of course, before I would even really
Mhm.
notice it. And so, and I told him I want to be on the go more. Like I don't want to be
Yeah.
tied down to going in once a month for an hour or
Right.
whatever with this treatment. Like I need
Sure.
something else. And he listened. He completely listened. He has great bedside manners. Like he does ask you
Good.
about family. He asks you about what you have going on,
Yeah.
stayed on me about staying on like with my dissertation and graduating. And
That's awesome.
he's like, if there's anything you need for me to help
Love
you
to put
with,
his name at the bottom of the show notes for people that live near you because it's so hard, as you know, right now to find a
mhm.
neurologist.
Yes, yes, it is. I didn't know how hard. I also in the past 6 months or so, 6 to 8 months, I
Mhm.
was doing some volunteer work with the MS Society by being a peer MS friend and peer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
and I was learning that then, like, it is hard, but I'm
Oh,
like,
gosh,
"What? You're
yeah.
having what issues?" Like, my neurologist would never, like, he's amazing.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, I've advocated and done this forever, and it's been a tricky situation here in Michigan to find one. So I'm so grateful that you have. So after diagnosis, what were some of the big changes that had? And I know that we've got short amount of time, so I'm not trying to
Yeah.
blow because we may have to do a second one with you so we
Oh,
can
yeah,
get
we
there.
can do a part 2,
Yeah,
Kathy.
we will have to do this because I have so many things I want to know and so many questions.
Yeah. So, after diagnosis, the change that I noticed, uh, I was like, this time of year, you know how the bears hibernate?
Yes.
I would be in my hibernation too. It would be times to where on an off day I could sleep. And of course that was when we had our 15-year-old, but then she, of course she was way younger, but
Uh,
I could sleep and know that like my husband and my mom would just take care and make sure, and I could sleep for like 6 hours straight, sometimes 8
Wow.
hours. And I was like, why am I sleeping like this? Why can I not pull
Wow.
myself out of this and try to get myself up and moving? And finally it got to a point to where I would start to have issues with like anxiety,
Hmm.
and then talking to, of course, Dr. Legang again, and he's like, "You're pushing yourself too hard. You have so many irons in the fire."
Right.
Because I was trying to do a full-time job,
Sure.
trying to also do a
Going to
part-time with teaching at
school.
the university, and then doing
Hmm.
school, and then of course, our daughter and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like
Well,
it's
you are one driven woman.
so
So
many. But see, I keep telling myself if I keep doing something and always have
yeah.
more than one or two projects going or
Yeah.
anything, I won't have time enough to slow down to where my body will start to say, "Hey, like what's going
Right.
on?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like
No,
I just need
I
to.
understand that. I really do, because I feel like the ones that I train, the clients that I train, I see the worst of it is when they've given up and what are you doing today? I don't know, just here. And I see that the ones that I see that have that are the ones that have declined the most. The ones
Mhm.
that, and I always try to encourage them, what is your why?
Yes,
So that
yes.
we don't forget. There, and we talked about this before we started to record. Sometimes we are so darn busy that my
Mhm.
head's about to spin off. But, then I know, the next day I've got to cool it down a little bit. But I think that if you and I, which I kind of think we're a bit similar, if we didn't have that, we would probably go insane and probably drive our husbands out of their mind. So I think probably our personalities is just to keep moving, keep
Keep
busy.
moving, keep busy, and it's always worked. And even
Yeah,
with Dr. Leggett telling me, you need to stay active, you need to stay moving in order for this, for you to be able to be more productive and move
yeah,
around. And as far as with not getting the stiffness,
right.
so and it's worked. It's
Yeah,
worked. And now, Kathy, I'm not even gonna front on this. I've tried it a few times to where I would like try to minimize and rest
sure.
up, and then that's when things would start happening. I would
Uh,
get more chronic pain, my leg cramps and everything were amping up, and so I was like, nope, nope, nope. I gotta stay moving. I gotta stay moving. Of course, my
yeah,
husband was like, get out the bed, you gotta stay moving. My mom, they're
uh-huh,
pushing. So now I'm on a good thing. But yeah, some people do. They're not, like us. Some people do feel like, hey, if my body says rest, I need to rest. Not to say that we don't rest,
right,
but it's still to a point of making sure like it's within a nice time frame, and then getting back
right.
up and getting yourself active.
Now, how's your sleep at night? So because I don't nap, and I know a lot, and it's not because I don't think it's necessary. I think a lot of our other MSers do need to have that nap. For me, I've never been a napper. I mean, I remember
Mhm.
my mom just saying, get in the room for 10 minutes. And I'd be just like, I just couldn't nap. I was like, la, 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 la. I couldn't nap. I was never a napper. So I'm not a napper now. I mean, I will try, but I'll end up like playing Wordle and just playing games on it. I'm like, I can't nap. So how does that help you? I sleep at night.
Before it's holler.